There are times when the justice system falls short, when the accused walk free on technicalities, or when officials seem too overwhelmed to protect the vulnerable. In those moments, some ordinary citizens cross an invisible line, deciding to become judge, jury, and in some cases, executioner. Today we're exploring the most emotionally charged vigilante stories, cases where heartbreak, love and rage erupted into acts of unsanctioned justice. These are tales of parents avenging harmed children, siblings tracking down killers, entire communities rising against terror, actions that deliver a mix of relief and tragedy in equal measure. Keep watching until our final chapter, a story so raw it brought an entire courtroom to tears, reminding us that vengeance can ignite hope or unravel lives just as violently as the original crime. If you find these revelations shocking, subscribe now so you won't miss next Saturday's episode, where we uncover haunted objects that brought disaster to their owners, artifacts so cursed they've changed entire families' fates. In 1984, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, witnessed a moment that would echo through news broadcasts nationwide. Gary Plauche was an ordinary father whose son, Jody, had been taken and abused by his karate instructor, Jeff Doucet. After an interstate manhunt, Doucet was finally arrested in California and brought back to Louisiana. But as cameras rolled in the airport corridor, capturing Doucet in handcuffs, Gary waited behind a bank of payphones, eyes brimming with tears. The heartbreak on his face was unmistakable. A father's love, twisted by rage and desperation, exploded in a single gunshot. Doucet collapsed on live television while news anchors gasped in horror. In that second, Gary redefined vigilante justice for an entire generation. Some praising him for saving other children from Doucet, others condemning his lethal reaction. The emotional weight came from understanding Gary's agonizing position. He wasn't a hardened killer, but a devastated father who felt the system couldn't adequately punish the man who shattered his son's innocence. In court, dozens of local parents testified on Gary's behalf, describing the fear they felt for their own kids. He received a suspended sentence and probation, never serving prison time. Yet the weight on his soul was immense. He had taken a life in a public act of vengeance. To many, it was a chilling example of how heartbreak can push a loving father into a role he never imagined, a role that left the community torn between calling him a hero or a murderer. In certain parts of Mexico, cartels reign with brutal violence, vanishing sons and daughters without a trace. In one quiet rural town, 6 teenagers disappeared within weeks of each other. Local police looked the other way, either paralyzed by fear or compromised by corruption. That was when a group of determined mothers refused to wait any longer, dubbing themselves Las Madres Buscadoras, the searching mothers. Armed with nothing but flashlights, picks and raw courage, they scoured ravines, fields and abandoned homes. Some formed night patrols, confronting suspicious vehicles with trembling voices but unyielding hearts. One mother recounted discovering her missing daughter's sweater buried in a shallow pit, sobbing so loudly that other mothers rushed to hold her up. Over time, rumors swirled that these mothers had confronted low-level cartel members, warning them that if they didn't reveal dumping grounds or release captives, the entire community would turn on them. Local news spread their story. Impoverished mothers who took investigative tasks into their own hands, risking revenge from the same cartels that had abducted their children. The emotional heartbreak was searing. Some found remains of their loved ones, finally able to bury them with dignity. Others never found closure, continuing the search amidst threats and rumors. Yet they collectively saved multiple kidnapped teenagers, quietly extracted from hidden dens, delivering them home to tearful reunions. This vigilante act wasn't about killing criminals. It was about forging a resolute bond of love that outmatched paralyzing fear. Their unstoppable hearts effectively replaced a broken system, showing the world that unwavering maternal devotion could challenge even the most ruthless adversaries. Gary and Laura Mulligan were a loving family from upstate New York, raising their teenage daughter, Caitlin. But in 1992, Caitlin was brutally assaulted by a well-connected local man who, despite damning evidence, walked free on legal technicalities. The heartbreak in that courtroom was tangible. Laura collapsed, wailing that the system had failed them. Over the next year, Caitlin battled nightmares, refused to leave home, and threatened self-harm. Laura's sorrow simmered into rage. One autumn evening, she followed the acquitted man, ambushing him in a convenience store parking lot. Witnesses say she shouted, "You stole my daughter's future," before firing 2 fatal shots. By the time police arrived, she was cradling his body, tears streaming, repeating, "I didn't want to do this. You left me no choice." The trial that followed was a media frenzy. Neighbors held candlelight vigils supporting Laura, empathizing with her helplessness. Others argued no heartbreak justifies vigilantism, especially homicide. Laura ultimately pleaded guilty to manslaughter, serving a reduced sentence due to the overwhelming emotional context. The Mulligan family's heartbreak became a case study in how love and despair can push gentle souls to commit irreversible acts, leaving a small community forever split on whether justice was served or if 2 tragedies, Caitlin's assault and the man's death, now weighed them down. New York City in the mid-1980s was rife with crime. One December day in 1984, Bernhard Goetz boarded a subway car carrying the trauma of a previous mugging and a concealed handgun. 4 young men approached, allegedly demanding $5. Convinced he was about to be robbed again, Goetz pulled out the revolver, firing multiple shots and wounding them all. Some riders saw it as an embattled citizen fed up with daily threats. Others labelled him a vigilante with racist undertones, since the teens were unarmed African-American youths. The emotional shockwaves were immense. Crime-weary New Yorkers viewed him as a vigilante hero, reclaiming their dangerous subway. Parents of the wounded men wept on camera, insisting their sons weren't muggers, that the city had scapegoated them. Goetz faced charges of attempted murder, but was only convicted of illegal firearm possession. Public opinion clashed violently. Was he a traumatized man or a hateful vigilante? This case exemplifies a vigilante's emotional complexity, fear, prior victimization, and a readiness to respond with lethal force. The tears came from both sides, from families impacted by random violence and from those who saw Goetz's panic as heartbreak turned lethal. To this day, mention Bernhard Goetz and you'll spark debate over whether vigilantism can ever be heroic, or if it merely creates more victims in a swirl of emotion and bullets. In 2007, 2 sisters, Danielle and Rose Herrera, lost their youngest sibling, Mia, in a gang-related shooting in Los Angeles. Mia had been an honor student walking home from an evening rehearsal when she was gunned down, apparently mistaken for someone else. The sisters were devastated, and as the months passed with no arrests, heartbreak mutated into burning fury. They transformed their grief into action, combing through local rumor mills, building an unofficial network of informants among teens who lived under the same gang's shadow. Night after night, they patrolled dangerous neighborhoods in a battered pickup truck, fearless yet trembling inside, searching for the man rumored to have fired the fatal shot. They even confronted gang members with tears in their eyes, brandishing Mia's photo. "Look at her face," Danielle would say. "Look at what you took." Some gang members, softened by guilt or maternal memories, whispered tips. Others threatened them to back off. Eventually, they trapped the alleged shooter in an abandoned warehouse district. Rose, armed with a stolen handgun, demanded he confess. Accounts say he denied everything, but Danielle found Mia's ring snatched during the murder inside his jacket pocket. In a moment of unstoppable emotion, Rose fired, wounding him in the leg. Instead of delivering a fatal shot, they called the police, tears pouring down their faces. He was arrested, ultimately convicted. The sisters faced possible felony charges for assault with a deadly weapon, but were granted leniency, stirring an emotional uproar. Some believed they brought justice where police failed. Others saw vigilantism that could have ended in tragedy. The heartbreak and love they carried for Mia propelled them into risk no rational person might take. Yet in that raw, tearful confrontation, they felt her presence guiding them to do what the system hadn't. One of the most harrowing accounts is that of Linda Warren, a grandmother from rural Ohio who'd raised her granddaughter Daisy after a drunk driver killed Daisy's parents. When Daisy was 15, she too became a victim, kidnapped and assaulted by a local repeat offender who, due to a series of judicial oversights, repeatedly escaped lengthy punishment. Linda's heartbreak and fury built up every time she visited Daisy in the hospital, seeing her sweet granddaughter scarred emotionally and physically. When that offender avoided another stiff sentence on a legal loophole, Linda felt her soul crack. She used her life savings to post bail for him, disguising it as a humanitarian gesture. Instead, she lured him to her remote farm under the guise of forgiving him. Once he arrived, Linda fired a shotgun, tears streaming down her cheeks. She called the police herself, sobbing so intensely that dispatchers had difficulty understanding her words. Daisy found her grandmother trembling near the body, repeating, "I had no choice. I had no choice." The emotional uproar was beyond measure. Linda's church group tried to pay her legal fees, while Daisy felt torn between gratitude that her attacker was gone and deep sadness that her beloved grandmother became a killer. Linda was eventually sentenced to prison for manslaughter, her last moments with Daisy spent in teary embraces. Investigators said they'd never witnessed such a potent mix of heartbreak and steely resolve. The vigilante action ended one monster's reign, but shattered Linda's future and Daisy's sense of normalcy once more. It underscores the brutal paradox of a grandmother's unconditional love, morphing into lethal vengeance. From fathers pulling triggers on abusers, mothers forming alliances against cartels, siblings confronting murderers, to grandparents shattering their own lives for retribution, vigilante justice emerges when heartbreak meets a broken system. Each story is layered in tears, raw anger, and profound moral conflict. Communities might cheer these acts as necessary evils, but the emotional toll is steep. Lives forever changed, lines crossed that can never be undone. Do you believe these vigilantes were saviors or cautionary tales? Which story resonated with you most profoundly? Let us know in the comments below. If you found these revelations both awe-inspiring and tragic, subscribe now so you won't miss next Saturday's episode, where we uncover haunted objects that brought disaster to their owners, artifacts so cursed they've changed entire families' fates. And remember, a broken system can lead ordinary souls to do the unthinkable. But each tearful choice leaves behind consequences that echo long after the deed is done. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in our next investigation.